I'm Neil McLeod with FractionalExec. Scott, good to see you. Just thought we'd get together and have a little conversation around AI, what you and I have been learning over the last 6 months, maybe year of application, personal and professional. So anything top of mind that you'd like to talk through from the AI perspective?
Good morning, Neil. Thanks for pulling us together. I think this is, I'm glad we're getting together to discuss kind of what we've been working on and some of the tools we've been using. You know, top of mind for me, obviously, always ChatGPT, those types of tools, but I've been spending a lot of time in Base 44. You know, number one, I've had a blast doing vibe coding and actually put it to use. What I've learned about that is fairly fascinating and frustrating at the same time. You know, some of the customer support. So you can start to see some of the maturity levels of the different vendors that are out there and their ability to support their user base.
Totally. So tell me more, just for people that might hear this that aren't sure what vibe coding is, talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So vibe coding basically is taking somebody like me with no programming skills and giving them the ability to build apps and websites, and it's really taking really the concepts and the understanding of business out of your brain and being able to, through a simple conversation with a tool, actually bring that to life, which is just amazing. So for me, it just totally excited me about my ability and gave me a whole new vision of what I could do with my knowledge that I've gained over the last, 100 years of being in business.
That's awesome. So I think the term was invented almost a little over a year ago, actually, February of 25. I started with tools like Replit and Cursor, and Vercel, I think, was another one that I tested about a year ago. And there was a great experience, but it was command line interface. So sort of like think about old green screens. And it was more oriented towards coders when I first started playing around with it. And then I think you introduced me to both Lovable and Base 44 that I fell in love with mainly because of the visual representation in the UI. So your average user, what that means is you're interacting with a tool and it's creating an application on your behalf in real time while you're prompting. But generally, it was much easier. What you see is what you get user interface with almost immediate response time. So that's kind of like been my experience. How about you? Anything that you'd share, like eye-opening for you?
Well, I think, some of it, to be honest with you, I'll throw another one of my deficiencies in there, which I'm, red-green colorblind. The ability to prompt and use terms like what is appealing in a business situation, use those colors, or use the latest and greatest optimization. So if you think about, optimizing for AI agents and optimizing for typical search engines and being able to put that into a prompt, speed, security, etc., along with adding additional things like you can put a photograph example in there or a document example in there that helps build the content and the flow. Take the tool through a workflow of how you want the user experience to be. So UI, UX, you can do that without knowing what the heck you're doing, right? Just understanding what's going to be easy for users and what's going to be visually appealing, and use the tool's knowledge to build those aspects into the application.
Cool. So I'm going to share screen real quick.
Yeah.
This is Base 44. Scott and I just had a conversation this week about marketing automation, trying to get better about the content. At the beginning of the year, we created a calendar with topic areas, and we try to use insights from our real world engagements. So when we're telling stories, we're conveying experiences, and we're conveying some of the problems, the issues, the opportunities that our customers are seeing as they're trying to adopt AI. And so I started messing around with like, okay, how could I build a marketing operating system for FractionalExec? And you can kind of see here on screen, where would I source content? And so I started prompting like, hey, let's just look at our LinkedIn and FractionalExec website to start with. And then an insight generator from our interactions with the LLMs. So go out to ChatGPT, look at our threads and see what common themes are surfacing. Human review gate here is showing, because for me it's super important to have human in the loop, because I don't want it to be AI slobs. I want it to be human, real, and authentic, and feel as if the story comes from a real experience as opposed to just generic stuff that's out there in the wild.
I think your human review, the human in the loop piece is so important that people need to understand that, it's a requirement in several industries, like the legal industry, insurance industry, et cetera. And we've worked with clients in those areas, and we keep pushing on them saying, listen, has to be human in the loop, has to be human in the loop, because there's still way too many opportunities for error and actual hallucinations, made up data, et cetera. So that's really important. And I think your other point about the AI slop, if you've spent any time on social media, especially like Facebook, I mean, you see these, what is supposedly news, and it always, this person taught a mastermind class in, going against the CNN reporter or whatever. I mean, they're all the same. It's getting so prevalent that people are not paying attention to what they're posting. They're just letting it auto-gen, and it's repetitive, it's sloppy, it's not good. And you can use it to establish a good brand voice for you, right? So that it always has the right cadence and the right perspectives, but you still need to make sure that you agree with it. You can't just let things fly because it's easy and fast. That's a quick road to failure.
Right on. I'm going to rapid fire some tools. ChatGPT, and Claude seem to be the most prevalent LLMs, so large language models that most people are using for daily personal and professional consumption. Microsoft Copilot is used in the work environment quite a bit. What is your take on trying to use various tools and maybe some reasons why, to compare and contrast outputs? Tell me about your experience on leveraging multiple services or solutions.
A year ago, maybe a little bit longer, it was about the LLM, how it had been trained and response time and all those. I really see that kind of going away, right? So that's all starting to blend together. It used to be, well, this one's good at image, this is good at writing, this is good at research, or whatever it might be. But they've iterated their tools so rapidly that it's becoming a little bit homogenous. And I think that's one of the interesting things that I see about Copilot. While I'm not a huge fan of Copilot, the way it integrates with Microsoft Office and the tools, and specifically the security and control in a corporate environment, gives that you need to really give that a hard look if you're a Microsoft shop. Chat they keep adding things, right? And then if you switch over to Google and Gemini, and now you've got Notebook LM as part of that, which is doing some really cool stuff with image and mind mapping and just an incredible amount of tools. So I think it's really coming down to the use of what you're trying to get at. They're putting more tools, more things to do with the same chat interface, if you will. They're building that second layer of usability tools into and on top of those LLMs. So it's interesting, though, if you take your work product out of one and you get it to where you think it should be, or as far as you can get it with that tool, you like it, take it to the next tool. So take it from chat into Copilot, or pick your version, Claude, etc., and ask it to clean it up or improve the prompt, and so you get a little different perspective, somewhat based on the LLM, but also based on your history of what you've been using that tool for. I know that both you and I keep different folders and projects active in those tools, so that you're not recreating every time. You're taking what you've used and honed and refined from each of those projects in the next step in that project, whether that's with a specific company or in a specific industry or for a specific application.
For sure. I'm going to share screen one more time here just to give people a sense of what you just mentioned. I have my Chat GPT set up. This is kind of my go-to. I use Gemini and Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, as kind of fallback options. So you can see on my screen above, I've got tabs of Lovable Open, Gemini. I've got Copilot right here. You mentioned Notebook LM. I've got that pulled there. And then I've got, Base 44 and N8N and Claude. And so I've got a lot of different tools that I use or have used. But I have the folder structure that you talked about here as well. So under FractionalExec, I have all of these threads talking about different topic areas, product coaching folder, personal folder, articles. And then I've just got these one-offs too, where, hey, look, I've got a random question. And so I'll just hit the mobile app. And this is a Gmail permissions error I was running into yesterday, TV preferences. But generally, like, that's how you can store content and context and get back to it easily without kind of losing your place. Let's talk a little bit then about, I guess, stay in the professional space as opposed to the personal space, and talk a little bit about, like, in the workforce use cases. What have you seen when we've gone out to organizations and trained and gotten feedback from them on how they're leveraging it, or what use cases seem to bubble up, governance or guardrails or things that they're worried about?
I mean, I think, what I've been reading lately is adoption is slowing, with the use of AI tools. And I think that's everyone going, okay, we need to control this thing. So we're going to slow this thing down. And so, some of the clients that we worked with, obviously, they're trying to understand where to use AI in their business, how to use it, and how to use it responsible. That's kind of the easy part, right? Because that's a strategic layer. But now taking that layer and rolling that out to their personnel is a different scenario. So what we've seen and experienced is, we believe in AI. We believe it's going to be a huge benefit to our company. There's still the misconception, I guess it's not really a misconception, but the conception that it's really just an expense reducer versus an accelerator for competition, and really upskilling workers to focus on things that are knowledge based versus redundant, repetitive, contractual, even, that is just if this, then that, right? The Boolean type approach to things. And so getting them to understand the tools, how to control the tools. So what are our guidelines is really important. How do we keep it secure? So if we're dealing with PII data, so personal information, those kinds of restricted data elements, how do I keep that within our four walls? And then how do I train my people? And that's been kind of an interesting piece for me, because you see the varying levels of adoption within an organization. You'll have one or two people that go, oh yeah, I've been using it forever, I use it every day, and and everybody goes, really? So it's kind of a surprise, and then you kind of go, oh my gosh, what have they been using it for, and has it been safe? And so getting everybody on a standardization and getting the ones that haven't been using it over their fear of using it is really important. And so that's one of the benefits of the training that we've done, and the feedback that we've gotten is, it was great training because they felt safe in the room. Nobody felt like they couldn't ask questions, and we had really good dialogue going back and forth, and that's important in an organization. So once you get the training established, the guardrails established, the security established, then you move on to the communication piece. How do we roll this out within the community that we call our company, and get that frequent communication rolling so that they know it's safe to use, they know how to use it and what to use it for, and you start getting the success stories and how we can build on this. You remove the fear of, I'm going to be displaced, I'm going to look dumb, I'm going to use it wrong, I'm going to break something, and you get them over that piece, and that's when you really start accelerating execution.
Yeah, I agree. Like the fear, the trepidation, the people don't want to feel awkward. Those are all real emotions, and we've experienced that. So where should people start? I mean, 3 years ago, I had a buddy of mine just say, "Oh my God, have you tried ChatGPT yet?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I pulled it up in a browser window and set up an account and just started running, free account. Just started asking questions. I ran to my limit on day one. And then I started peppering it over the next week or two. And then finally I was like, oh yeah, this is only $20 a month. This is sort of a new way of thinking about how to search for things, how to improve the way you communicate, I use it as a coach, like how to give yourself feedback on some of your thought processes. So use it as a sounding board. Where should people start? Where did you start?
Man, I dove in like you did. I dove in and just started pounding it, right? For anything from research to just helping me rethink my approach to things. Giving me different perspectives. When everybody started working remote, you lost that dynamic that's in the office. It's not the same when you're doing video calls. And so, now all of a sudden I've got, in my remote office, I've got a thought partner that I can use, daily, and I use it throughout the day.
Yeah, I totally agree. I went with my son. He's got a battery issue on his MacBook, and so we went to the Apple store a couple weeks ago. And lately, in the last couple months, there's all the rage, all the conversation in the AI space for the people that are close to it has been around OpenClaw, which is one of the latest and greatest tools. It's open source. It's not very secure. It's more developer friendly than it is kind of common user friendly at this point in time, but a lot of tools are now starting to roll out solutions. Claude has co-work. Microsoft just launched the Copilot co-work. And then Perplexity has a tool called Computer. And what they do is they interact with all of the tools that you might use on a daily basis, your calendar, your email, and they help you to create automations to create more efficiency in how you work. So it can summarize the most important content that you should be reading and reacting to or responding to. Back to the whole OpenClaw front, I went in there to ask them about buying a MacBook Mini just to create a secure environment that's partitioned off from all of my own account information, just to start testing it and seeing what it can actually do and the power of it in creating agentic automation, if you will. So what's been your thought process as we move from just basic prompting to then vibe coding and being able to see response and see actual production of code before your eyes, to now workflow automation, which is the latest and greatest incarnation of where AI has taken us?
Yeah, I think, the workforce automation it's an amazing opportunity, right? But the problem is there's a couple problems. It always starts with data, right? If the data that you're using is bad data or incomplete data, then your process is going to be broken. It's not going to perform like you want it to. So clean data is really important when you start this. And then the other thing is, a lot of people are just going to automate their current existing process, which typically is going to be inefficient. So really thinking through that process, what is critical, what's not critical, how can you do that with an agent is another important process piece of it. But I think back to some of the engagements that we've done in the healthcare space, and I think about the claims process, for instance. It's all based on contracts, right? ICD-10 codes. That doesn't change, right? By contract, that doesn't change. And in fact, the reimbursement rates don't change from the contract. And you've got just hundreds of people out there trying to take these two, what the doctor did, what the insurance contract says, and file the proper form to get reimbursed. And there's all kinds of games that are being played. You need prior auth, you don't need prior auth, all those types of things that are in the contract, reimbursement rates, which code did you use? It could have been one or this code or that code. And I think that's a perfect example of how you go in, you save a ton of money, you save a ton of time, get your cash flow velocity up because you're getting all your claims filed more quickly, and you should eliminate rejection from the payer because it's all by contract, right? It doesn't vary. There's no human error in that instance. And I think it's just a massive opportunity to reduce costs in the healthcare space and help these providers that are struggling from a cash flow standpoint because the reimbursement just takes forever. So they're running behind, which goes all the way down the supply chain. So then they have to stretch out their vendors, et cetera, and it just drives costs up for the consumer.
Yeah. Well, I think, that was pretty much the topic areas I wanted to cover today, but I think I skimmed over one that we should probably close on. You talked about job loss and the fear and what it takes to kind of overcome that. So where's your head at? My head is the more you know, the more you learn, the more you understand, the more you're comfortable with the infinite possibilities that this technology will bring to bear. But understanding there is a human component with that. Where's your head at, and how do we try to help people get over the hump? And do you think there's going to be a realistic job loss, and are we going to see that impact over the next couple of years?
Yeah, Neil, it's a great topic. I have talked about this, and when I initially started down this path, I'm like, you know what? There'll be some job loss, but it'll be more of a shift. And I think it's going to be a bigger displacement, to be honest with you. The more I use it, the longer I go, see the tools, see the power, see where we're going. But the one thing that I think that people need to understand, I mean, if you're going to be still and become a victim, if you're going to not try to learn and advance and recreate yourself, then you will be a victim in this new world that's being created by AI and the tools that are in it. But it's also one of the most exciting times, certainly in my lifetime, where you can actually learn and recreate yourself, and you can leverage your knowledge and your experience to become whatever you want to become. I mean, it's amazing to me, right? Creating applications is something that, I mean, I got to tell you, I had one computer science class when I was in college. I was horrible, right? I mean, the only reason I passed that class is I had a really smart guy that was good at programming in the next door in the dorm, that he would show me the errors of my way, and I could get through it. So for me to be able to create an application of value is amazing. For me to be able to go in with an idea and a concept and start writing a book and get help editing and bouncing back and forth and finding holes that I need to fill in is amazing, because I feel like I have the ability to provide value in those instances. So, I would urge everyone to just totally embrace the tools and learn and be curious and recreate yourself, and don't be shy. I mean, if you ever had that dark secret of I want to become whatever, now is the time to go learn that and find the tools that will help you become that person or that profession that you want to be in. It is the time to upskill yourself, and it's cheap, it's easy, it's fast, and if you want to learn, the tools are there for you.
Awesome. Well, on behalf of Fractional Execs, Scott Mingus, Neil McLeod, we appreciate everybody listening, and we'll be back at you. Thanks, man.
You as well. Thanks for doing it.
See ya.
See ya.